Hi, I'm Kay, aka That Sis in Tech. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is about how to break into tech. What specifically do you have to do to have a career in tech? And I'll show you how to do that in 4 steps. So, once again, I'm Kay. Let's talk tech. So, let's jump into breaking into tech. That can be done in 4 steps. And so, let me first give you the 4 steps and then I will explain each step. So the first step is to define your goal. What do you want to do in tech? The second step is create your plan. How do you get the background that you need in order to do the job that you've pinpointed in step one? Next thing is execute that plan that you came up with. And the last thing is to break into your first professional job. Now, it sounds fairly simple, but there's some complexity in each of these steps. So let's dive deeper. First step in defining your goal is to choose a career. If you have seen my application development or SDLC video, then you've seen this picture before. That video is where I give you an overview of what are the steps that it takes to create a system or an application. And I use those terms interchangeably because a system is just several applications kind of sewn together. You can see them that way. That's a simplistic way of seeing it, but it works. So, steps involved in creating an application shows you the types of jobs that are involved in that process, right? So, if you've seen this before, you'll remember that each of these boxes shows you a step, and then somewhere in the box I mentioned which role is involved in that step. So first, a problem or opportunity is defined, and that would involve the project sponsor and the project manager. Now, you can't get a job as a project sponsor, but you can get a job as a project manager, and some other jobs there: business analyst, dev team, coding, QA team, etc. I'm not going to do an explanation of these. Again, I have a whole video on it, so you can go to that video. I'll put the link in the description box and you can watch that video. But suffice it to say that there are multiple roles besides coder that are involved in creating an application. So I've come up with a list of those jobs, and um, I've tried to categorize them, some sort of types, right? So there are coding jobs, data jobs, administrative jobs, and infrastructure jobs. And these job titles that are listed under each category are what you would commonly see if you go out to the job boards looking for tech jobs. Some of these jobs require advanced knowledge, and some of the jobs are a little easier to get into in terms of starting a career in tech. They are more of an entry point. And so I've highlighted those that I think are more of an entry point. This list is available at my website, ktalkstech.com, under downloads. So once you choose a job that you want, you need to research what's required for that job and what's the information on that job. So what's required in order to be able to do that job? What are the duties of the job? How much does it pay? Look, you've heard people say if it don't make money, it don't make sense. Okay, we're not trying to get a job just because we think tech is nice. You know, I want you to make some money. I want you to get paid. I want you to transition into tech from other jobs that don't pay well. You got to look at what does it pay in your area and what sort of mobility is there in the job. So nobody wants to be in a dead end job. This is tech. Tech is always moving, it's always changing, and you got to move and groove too. That doesn't mean that every day you're reading a technical manual or taking a class, but you do have to stay on top of what's happening, right? Because jobs change, jobs jobs evolve, some jobs fall away. So, for instance, if you go back to the list of jobs I just showed you, you'll see that there's multiple types of business analysts in the administrative. I just found a new one today. Now there's AI business analysts. So AI is, relatively new on the scene. And so now they want business analysts that are familiar with AI. So there's always something being added. It's always expanding. It expands a lot in one area and then it will contract some in another area. So you don't always have to take a class either. There are people who, well, I put it like this, you don't always have to pay to learn something new. There are people who are sharing their knowledge. There are webinars for free. People love talking about tech. I love it too. So once you get in, well, stay on top of what's going on in your new industry and the places that are talking about things that are related to what you're interested in. Go and learn and network and just hear what people are saying. So for the research, you're going to use job boards. Now, here I've listed the most popular industry job boards that I know of. There's lots of job boards. There may be more job boards than people in the country at this point. Every time you turn around, a new job board springs up. But these are the major industry job boards: LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Dice, Monster, Glassdoor, and Career Builder. I should have added, it's not really a job board, but it's a place to do research, and that's salary.com. Salary.com is good for finding the median salary for people in your area that do a particular job. So if you want to be a business analyst or a data analyst, you can go to salary.com, type in data analyst, put in your area of the country and state or zip code, whatever it is, and it will show you multiple levels of that role, which is now helping you do research on mobility. I can just tell you off the top, most tech roles go from level 1 through level 5. Level 5 is the last level before you go to manager or architect. So there are a few that may only go to level 4. But you know what? Somebody can decide, you know what I want. I'll just create a 6 and that's what I'm going to put on the job board and boom, there it is. So it's not set in stone, right? But looking at that shows you what you think your mobility could be. And then you can see, okay, when I'm at level 1 out, the median salary for that particular job is this amount. But at level 4, the median salary is that amount. Now the median, right? That's in the middle. But ain't nobody trying to be median. When I hear median, you know what I hear? Mediocre, right? So nobody's trying to do that. What you're going to do is when you embark on this journey of learning whatever you need to learn to have a tech career, you're going to learn your stuff cold. Don't waste your time. Put in the time and the effort to be an A plus student. It will do nothing but pay you back exponentially. Put in the time to be at the top of your game, to know your stuff cold. If somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night and asks you a question related to your industry, I want you to know that answer, sleepy and everything, right? That will put you in the 75 to 100% for that role. And that can be quite a bit more money. That's where I want you to land. You'll see that when you go to salary.com, right? So the other thing you're looking at is, what do you do in the job? Salary.com is good for that too. All the job boards are good for that, but I just like the way salary.com lays it out. All the information is right in front of you because it's made for that. What would you do? There's a job description. You might find a job that doesn't have a description, but understand that description that they have is a general description. You could go on the job boards and find something somewhat different. Okay. It's not going to really tell you much about skills. You'll need to go to one of the job boards for that. Um, and it will give you some idea of the education and training, but I want to tell you this about education. Every single job in tech that you look at will say 4-year degree, and it's not true. There are many jobs in tech, almost all of them, where the 4-year degree will be overlooked if you've got the goods. What I mean by that is if you can show that you, then tech managers don't care about the 4-year degree. Skill is king in tech, and don't ever forget that. So, the other thing you're trying to understand is the market for your chosen career. What does it pay? The career progression, I already talked about that. Now, if there's enough interest, I could do a little webinar on how to research in the job boards. You could take 2 or 3 of these job boards and salary.com and do some research because each job board is different. How you look at the jobs is different. It's nothing that you can't figure out on your own, but sometimes people like to have a guide. So if there's enough interest, go to my website and let me know that you're interested. You can contact me through this page, talkstech.com/coaching, and just do a contact and say you're interested in a webinar for defining your goal. And when I get several people interested in that, I'll set something up. So let's move on. The next step in breaking into tech is to create your plan. So the first thing you need to do is figure out how are you going to get the training or education that you need to do the job that you're interested in. There are multiple ways to do that. You can go to college, you can go to technical school, you can do some sort of online career certificate. And with that, I want to take a second to talk about Google career certificates. So Google has recognized that tech is a great paying middle class job and that college is very expensive. So they've set up some training that they're delivering through Coursera, right? And it's spelled just like it sounds, Coursera.com, or you can look for Google Career Certificates. They offer them in several different areas of tech, so you can look into that. It's not free, you do have to pay for it, but it is far cheaper than college or technical school. And they say that they have some sort of alliance with different companies that will hire people that have those Google career certificates. Now, that doesn't mean that there's placement services, doesn't mean that, but it does mean that if you get that certificate, it will be respected. So that's one thing to look into. If you wanted to do like a boot camp, colleges do that. There are a lot of education providers in tech, and they are not created equally. So be careful about which ones you choose. Choose someplace that's very well respected. Google, very respected. Colleges, very respected. The thing about colleges and their boot camps, I don't want to name any college in particular, but I know of a couple. You can just, search for that on the internet. Pretty much all of them have something they're offering in tech. But the question is what they're offering what employers are looking for. So you want to compare what they say they're going to teach to what's in the job requirements that you found on those job boards. Same thing with technical school. I don't know any technical schools that I would recommend at this point. There used to be a couple very respected ones, but now with all this online stuff, I just don't know how many people are doing technical schools anymore. Um, in any event, the other thing that you want to look for is not just are they teaching what you need to know, right? What you don't want to spend a bunch of money and go to some sort of boot camp or whatever. And then when you get on the job, you have a bunch more stuff to learn. That's not what you want. You want to be ready to go day one. You have all the basic skills. You just need to put them to use. You just need a little guidance about how that particular organization does things. That's the position you want to put yourself in. And the other thing is if you're going to go to a college or a technical school, ask about placement services because they're expensive places. And for that expense, they should be able to introduce you to multiple employers. And I don't mean just a job fair, right? They need to show they have a high placement percentage. I would want to see the reviews of people that got jobs through them and show that they have employers that they have relationships with that will hire right out of their school. You have to get a credential, right? So it's not enough to just take the class. At the end of the class, you need a little piece of paper that says, hey, I took this class, right? Just like if you went to college, at the end of college, you get a diploma, you get a degree, you take a class to learn something in tech. You want a piece of paper that says this person took this course of study. After you get the training, you need to get an industry certificate. Now, industry certification is different from a career certificate. Okay. After you learn how to do it, so let me give you an example of what I mean. Lawyers, right? Lawyers go to law school. After they finish law school, they take the bar exam. The bar exam doesn't say this person went to law school. It says this person understands how to apply the law. And it's a very difficult test, right? But that's what they're certifying. So the law school will give them a degree that says this person completed a course of study in law. And the bar exam says this person knows how to apply what they learned. Same thing happens in tech. You want to get some sort of certificate from your training that says, hey, I trained in this. And then you want to get some certification from some industry provider that says, yeah, that person knows how to apply this knowledge. So, what's an example of industry certification? Well, the Google Career Certificate combines both things together. But let me give you some other examples. So, let's say you decide you want to be a project manager, right? And you go to school for project management, okay? um, and you get a certificate in project management. The next thing you need to do is become a certified project manager. So the most respected organization that is the Project Management Institute, and they have certifications at different levels, right? So you can look into what certifications they offer. I'm a certified project management professional. Um, that's there's a certification level more for students, but PMP is their base and it's very well respected. It definitely helped me get a new job and continues to help me get work today. But it's a difficult test. It's the only test that look, I'm a techie, I'm a nerd, I'm a geek. But it's the only test I've ever taken in my entire life that I didn't know if I was actually passing it until the test was over, right? So it's a rigorous test. I forget if it's 3 hours or 4 hours, but once you pass it, you just have to keep your knowledge up to date, and they have a whole process around that. It's not difficult and it's very well respected. So they have those for business analysts, they have those for data analysts, they have those for QA people, they have those for developers. For developers, it's in certain technologies. They have those for people that work with databases. So, and it's the industry, the provider. Oracle provides a database. Microsoft provides a database, SQL Server. But Microsoft also provides data visualization software where you make charts and graphs. And um, when you're watching the news and you see those charts with the squiggly lines, there's a whole area of study and tech behind that. Um, there's a couple of different ways to go with that. You could be a data analyst or a business intelligence developer, but there are different technologies you can use to do that. And so, for each technology, the people who own that technology, who created that technology, will certify you in that technology for a price. So you want to get that industry certification. So let's say I wanted to be a business intelligence developer. I would research what that is. I'd find out what are the technologies I'm seeing most often. So I already know because I am in tech, you're going to see a lot of Power BI and you're going to see a lot of Tableau, right? You're also going to see Python. So Python is a programming language, but you're definitely going to see Tableau and Power BI. So I would get certified in both of those. And then I would create a portfolio. This is your opportunity to show off and show out because after you get your training, that's not enough. You got to have somebody to say, yeah, she knows how to use the stuff she learned. Then you get your certification. But that's really not enough either. How show me how you do it. And in tech skill, if you can show what you know, nobody cares about the 4-year degree for the most part, right? There are certain roles where they are going to care about the 4-year degree, but those are more advanced roles. So with these tech roles, if you can show your tech skills, that's what it's really about. So if I was going to be a business intelligence developer, whatever projects I developed while I was learning, I would save those to a portfolio. But I also create a couple of others. There are some case studies that you can find on the web. You can make up your own. Um, and I would have 3 to 5 um, items to be able to show a potential employer. Show what you know. Show up, show off, show up, show off, and show out. And let employers know that you've got the goods. You know what you're doing. You got it. And someone will definitely hire you based on that. Now, I'm putting together a coaching cohort because some people feel better when they're part of a community and they're trying to learn things. There's some people that learn everything on their own, but some people like community when they're learning. So that's a cohort, to have a community of learning. So if you want to join a cohort of making your path into tech, go on to my website under coaching and send me a note and let me know you're interested. I also offer individual coaching because sometimes you just want to ask a few questions and you need somebody to guide you a little bit one way or the other, and I'm happy to do that. If your questions are short, then just add your questions to the video, or you can put them on my website as well. Okay, so that is the first 2 steps into breaking into tech: define your goal and create your plan. So, the next step in your journey to breaking into tech is to execute your plan. You have to have execution around your plan. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. You know, um, intentions are great, but you have to make space in your life for you to accomplish your goal. Just sit down and list the steps that you're going to take, right? We talked about the steps as part of the overview, but you want to be very specific, right? Once you know what you're interested in, find that training program that you're going to take. And so that first step is to take that training program. Okay. That next step is to pursue that industry certificate. Okay. Um, that third step is to create the portfolio. For each step, add a timeline and add 10% to the timeline because nobody is perfect. Life happens, things happen. You couldn't do something on one day because you had to take the kids somewhere or you had to work later, whatever it is, right? So pad your timeline a little bit, not a lot bit. Because if you put a lot of extra time in there, you'll never get it done. But put a little extra time in there for each step. So when you're pursuing that training, how long does the training take? Every training class will tell you how long it takes. Is it a 10-week class, a 4-week class, a 5-hour class? And for real, there are some trainings that will be 5-hour classes. So, whatever it is, at that end, and then create a schedule. When exactly can you do whatever it is you plan to do? This is the key to success right here, creating that schedule. If you're going to take a class online over 10 weeks, then what days are you going to do that? And what hours of the day are you going to do that? Are you going to do that at lunchtime twice a week? Don't tell yourself you're going to do lunchtime 5 days a week because it's not going to happen. You know why? Because if you're like most adults, you probably use your lunchtime to run errands, right? And you might want to have lunch with your coworkers once in a while. Or maybe you just want to do nothing and clear your mind and give yourself a break. So, create a schedule for yourself that's realistic. If you commute on public transportation, that's a great time to do some of this stuff, especially if you're taking an online class or you have to read something. That's a great time to do that. Once you create a schedule, then set appointments in your calendar to remind yourself that you're going to do this at this time, right? Remind yourself the day before, half an hour before, 10 minutes before, and then at the actual time. So you stop whatever you're doing and you take care of that appointment. It's very important that you respect your goals, right? Don't do what some people do. They set up the timeline, create the schedule, set the appointments. Then the appointment reminder happens, they get the alert, but they don't stop what they're doing and shift to doing what they need to do to pursue their goals. So respect your goals. Goals are really important just from a career perspective because it gives you something else to look forward to. It helps you to not be so, I guess, engulfed in your career that it's your identity. Yes, you can love your career, but it's important to know that you're not your career. There are people who don't do that, and then if they get laid off, they're devastated. I know because I lived it. I've seen other people live it, and I feel the change when I have other goals outside of my current job that are focused on making money, right? When you have a plan to do something that you're excited about, it changes your life. So when that alert goes off, knowing that you always have to protect your current income, right? So, if you're working through lunch for something that has to get done right away, then you're not going to be able to stop and pivot to whatever it is that you need to do to break into tech. But that doesn't happen every day, right? At least I hope it doesn't. So, yeah, respect your goals. I think if you do that, then you'll be ready for the next and final step, which is to find a career, find your first professional job in tech. So, like any profession, finding that first job can be a bit of a challenge. But I want you to hang in there and don't give up because it can happen. And so a lot of professions have the same issue. I need experience, but I need to get the first job so I can get experience. But there are ways to do this. So the first thing you're going to do is update your resume. When you update your resume is important. I want you to do it when you first start your path towards a career in tech and you take your first training class. So, on the first day, or maybe right before the first day of your training class for whatever role it is in tech that you want, I want you to update your resume. And on your resume, you're going to put your anticipated completion date. So you're going to put whatever training you're going to get, say, for instance, project management certificate, anticipated completion date for 2024, right? Put that right on your resume. Also want you to put on your resume the anticipated completion date for your industry certification. Okay. Uh, Google certificate in data analysis, anticipated completion date 9/2025, whatever it is, right? Put that right on your resume. And then make sure that you list the skills that you're learning, because those will all be keywords that are used by the software that recruiters use to search through resumes. So you want to get hits on your resume for that. Then you take your resume and you put it on those job boards that we talked about before, and any other job boards you can think of. Companies you're interested in that you want to target. If you want to work for Google, put it on there. If you want to work for Mr. Big Bank, put it on that website. If you want to work in pharmaceuticals, put it on the boards on those companies. Any companies you want to work for. Also, consulting companies, because you're not necessarily looking for a job at the point that you put this on. What you're doing is you're finding out what's out there so that you can make sure that you get all the skills that you need. So you set up those alerts on job boards and check those alerts often. And if you see something you like that you think you can do, apply for the job. Next thing you want to do is try to get some experience. So when you're taking the trainings, you're going to have some sort of projects to do. That's experience. Okay. And you're going to take those projects and put them in your portfolio, but you want to get some more real world practical experience as well. So the approach that you're going to take is toe in the water. Anything you can get, any little piece of anything you can get will be valuable to you, because it gives you that much over the next person in a very competitive landscape. So you can get that through side hustles. Did you know the Shade Room started as a side hustle and blew up? I was really surprised when I learned that. That's really, really interesting. And you never know, it could happen to you. But in any event, you can do some side jobs, some small um, projects that you can find on, let's see, you can find some on Upwork, you could find something on Fiverr. There are other websites out there. I don't know them all, but those are two that come to mind. Um, Maybe you can find something you can do remote. There's a website called remote.co. I don't know how reliable it is, but I'm seeing that more and more often. So side hustles and gigs, short gigs, long-term gigs, it depends on how much time you have. And you can volunteer. Volunteering is good. Let me tell you a little story about volunteering. So at one point, I was unemployed and I stayed home with my son when he was young, but I wanted to keep myself involved in tech so I could keep my skills fresh. So I tried my hand at being a website designer. And to get experience, I did a couple of volunteer gigs that came out pretty well. One was a friend of mine who was a realtor. So I put together her website for her. And and that stayed out there a long time, years and years and years and years. And the other one was a website that I did for a cheer team. And the young lady was very happy with what I produced for her. So, um, that's just an example of what you can do to volunteer, but it doesn't matter if the volunteer work is not exactly what it is you want to do in tech. That's the toe in the water approach. Any tech you can get is going to be helpful, because what you're showing is you have some idea of how the process works, right? So the less green you are, the more attractive you are as an employee. Listen, your manager is busy, right? And while they want to bring in new employees at a more junior level, they don't want to have to teach you that you have to show up on time for work every day. You know what I mean? So there are some things that you want to develop before you get on the job the first time. Now, if you are a person who has a career that you want to transition out of it into tech, then of course, in those areas, you are ahead of the game, but you still need tech experience. You still need a portfolio. You still need to show that you have some idea. And um, for transitioning out of tech, the job that I love is teacher. I love the idea of teachers transitioning from teaching into tech. Because, first of all, you make more money, and I think you deserve it. And not, that doesn't go for all teachers because some places do pay their teachers well. Um, so I've been told. But I recently spoke to someone who said, who was complaining about having a teaching job where she was making $40,000 a year. I said, well, you could transition into tech, but you'd need to take a training class. She said, oh, no, I can't take a training class because I'm already pursuing my master's. Really? You didn't even wait to hear what the training class was. The class was 5 hours. You just needed to learn how to teach adults instead of children. And the job was instructor or instructional designer in education. And it said it wanted people who were already teachers, but they wanted you to know something, have knowledge of adult learning outcomes, right? So knowledge of is different from experience. Maybe I should do a video on how to read these job descriptions and understand what they're saying, because if it says knowledge of, that's a class. If it says experience in, it'll tell you how much experience most of the time. If it says familiar with, that means kind of like working knowledge. You heard of it, you may have used it once or twice. It's a little more than knowledge of, but less than experience in. So, yeah. The other thing that I'm working on is a tech team experience workshop that will give you 3 months experience working on a real tech project for a real company where you can get 3 months experience to put on your resume. So if you're interested in that, go to my website and let me know. I think you know where it is by now, ktalkstech.com, and go to the coaching page and send me a note and let me know you're interested in that, because I'm not going to put together anything that nobody's interested in, right? But I think 3 months real world experience working in tech as part of a technology team and producing a real product for a real company should be worth your while. Okay. Um, if you can get that experience on your own, great. Ooh, I should have mentioned internships. How could I not mention internships? Internships are one of the best ways to get tech experience. Maybe the company will hire you permanently, but I would start trying to do internships the minute that I started working in tech or working towards my tech career. I would try to find out, if nothing else, find out which companies do internships. A lot of companies will publish their internships to the job boards. Some of them only do it on their own job board, but some of them do it on those industry job boards like Dice and Indeed. So try and get yourself on as many job boards as possible. That way, you get more information about what's happening. And then once you get your job in tech, you can take yourself off the job boards. I would set up a separate email just for the job boards because it's going to be a lot of information. And then some job boards scrape other job boards. So they'll pick up information from other job boards. And so you might find yourself getting those emails as well. The other thing is to be open to consulting. Now, obviously, if you have a job and you have commitments, you can't just leave your job, your permanent job, and go to a consulting job, but be open to it. Is there any way you can do them both at the same time? Is there any way you could do the consulting job part-time? Yeah, there's not a lot of them, but there are some part-time consulting jobs out there, especially if you look on some of the gig websites that I mentioned earlier. But be open to it. Um, Save your money as much as possible. If you save up your money and you know you can pay your bills for 6 months, and then you can get into a consulting job and never quit your current job until everything is complete and you have your start date and you finished your background checks and so forth for your consulting job. And I'll do a video on all about consulting. But there are long-term consulting roles. So don't burn the bridge where you are now and say, you know what, this is my notice. I'm going to move on and try something else and try it, right? If you have your money saved up, you can pay your bills. Now you're consulting, and you might find yourself a long-term situation of 2 years or a year. A lot of consulting roles are 6 months at a time, but if you can find a longer one that's a year, go for that. Because if you double your salary and you have your money to pay your bills for the next 6 months, it sounds to me like you can save all of your new salary and you'll be that far ahead of the game. So, if I've said something you find interesting or you think it's helpful, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also hit that like button and get my message out. Help me get my message out to others. And hopefully, I'll see you next time.